The underground poker room smells like cigar smoke and old money. Green felt stretches across 3 tables, and under the fluorescent lights, the faces of men who have buried people look almost human. Almost. Nicholas Castellano stands at the head of the room, his custom charcoal suit tailored so precisely it seems carved from his body. His white dress shirt is unbuttoned at the collar, revealing the thin gold chain around his neck. He is 47 years old but carries the weight of someone much older, a weight built from 15 years of ruling San Francisco's underworld with the kind of precision most men reserve for accountants and surgeons. His dark eyes, the color of storm clouds, are fixed on the surveillance monitor mounted in the corner. Those eyes have watched 1,000 acts of betrayal. Tonight, they are watching another. The summer thunderstorm outside sounds like a living thing, rain lashing the warehouse windows in waves. Lightning splits the sky every few seconds, and for brief moments, the entire room goes white. Thunder follows, deep and solid like an oath that no one survives breaking. Sergio stands to Nicholas's left, massive and quiet, his hand never straying far from the pistol holstered beneath his left arm. Nino occupies the right side, younger but no less dangerous, his jaw tight with the kind of tension that comes from knowing his boss is about to execute someone. Both men have been with Nicholas for over a decade. Both men have learned to read the smallest shift in his expression the way sailors read the sea. She left the mansion at 1:47 this morning, Nicholas says, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. Not a question. Never a question. A statement of fact, loaded with implications. The security footage from the East Gate confirms it. Again. On the monitor, the image is grainy but clear enough. A woman in a dark jacket, moving quickly through the rain-soaked streets of San Francisco. Her hair is pulled back, her head down, her pace urgent. This is the 3rd time in 2 weeks. The 3rd time she has betrayed his trust. Sergio shifts his weight. Should we? Not yet, Nicholas cuts him off, his eyes never leaving the screen. I want to know who she meets. I want to know where she goes. I want to know exactly how deep this runs. The woman's name is Sofia Harper. She works as a live-in nanny for Catherine Mercer, one of the wealthiest women in the Bay Area. Nicholas hired her personally, 3 months ago, to care for a child who appeared in his life like a ghost from his past. The child came with no paperwork, no birth certificate, no official existence, because she was stolen. Taken 5 years ago by an ex-wife consumed by rage and cruelty. Sofia was supposed to be temporary. A placeholder while Nicholas arranged the legal nightmare of custody battles and lawyers and custody battles. But something shifted in those 3 months. The lightning illuminates the warehouse again, and for one bright instant, every man in the room is exposed, rendered completely visible, completely vulnerable. Then darkness swallows them again. She's been receiving packages, Nino adds quietly. Unmarked deliveries at the service entrance. Never the same courier twice. Nicholas's jaw tightens. Packages. Unmarked. Multiple couriers. In his world, this is the language of betrayal. This is how you fend stolen goods. This is how you communicate with rival families. This is how you prepare to disappear. His right hand moves toward his pistol, a movement so practiced it requires no conscious thought. The weapon is there, and in his mind, the problem is already solved. Sofia Harper will vanish before dawn. The child will be placed with trusted hands. Life will continue. But life, as the universe has a habit of reminding men like Nicholas Castellano, is rarely cooperative. The door to the underground poker room crashes open. Sofia stands in the doorway, and every single thing about her is wrong. Her left temple is split open, bleeding in a way that suggests impact with concrete or pavement. Her left eye is swollen completely shut, the surrounding skin purple and black, transforming half her face into something almost unrecognizable. And her throat, her neck is covered in finger-shaped bruises so vivid they look painted on, dark purple against pale skin, the signature of hands that squeezed and did not let go quickly. Her jacket is soaked through. Rain drips from her elbows, her sleeves, her dark hair. She is breathing hard, each breath a struggle, and her right hand is clenched around something in her jacket pocket, something rectangular, something that clearly matters more to her than the bleeding, more than the bruises, more than standing in a room with 12 armed men who have collectively killed more people than she has known in her entire life. Everything stops. Sergio's hand is immediately on his weapon. Nino steps forward. The men at the poker tables go completely silent, that kind of silence that happens just before violence, the kind of silence that has a weight and texture and smell like iron. Nicholas's hand is on his pistol. He is already moving, already thinking 3 steps ahead. This woman who has been betraying him, who has been sneaking out in the middle of the night, who has been receiving mysterious packages, has just stumbled into his private poker room during a summer thunderstorm, and she is bleeding. His brain catalogues the possibilities with the speed of a perfectly programmed machine. She has been caught by whoever she has been working with. She is trying to get protection by exposing herself to him. She is trying to use the warehouse as a safe house. She is trying to make a deal. She is trying to. "I'm sorry," Sofia whispers, and her voice is barely audible over the rain hammering the windows. "I'm sorry, I didn't know where else to go. I didn't know who else." "You're bleeding," Nicholas says. Not a question. A statement of fact, delivered in a voice that gives away nothing. He was waiting, Sofia continues, her words tumbling out in the way of someone who has seconds before everything ends. "He found me outside the clinic. He grabbed me in the parking garage and he said he knew about Emma, he said she was worth money, he said." The name hits Nicholas like a blade through the chest. Emma. His daughter. The child he has been searching for, had almost given up searching for, the child who has been sleeping in a converted closet at the Mercer mansion while this woman he believed was betraying him, worked 14-hour days protecting her. Not betraying him. Protecting her. Who? His voice is different now. Dangerous in a new way, dangerous in a way that says violence is no longer a possibility but an inevitability. "Who grabbed you?" "Douglas Hale," Sofia says, and thunder cracks the sky like a whip. "He's a human trafficker, he's outside waiting, he followed me here because he thought I would lead him to." Nicholas is already moving. He is already 6 steps toward the door, Sergio and Nino flanking him like shadows with weapons. The poker games have been abandoned. The stack of cash sits untouched. In this moment, money means nothing. Betrayal means nothing. Everything means nothing except the fact that someone has grabbed Sofia Harper and threatened his daughter. Outside, the rain comes down in sheets, and somewhere in that rain, Douglas Hale is waiting. Somewhere in the thunder and lightning and chaos of the summer storm, a man has made the mistake of his life, the mistake of thinking he could take something that belongs to Nicholas Castellano. Before we continue, drop a like if this story hits you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming tomorrow. Now, let us go back to the beginning, to 3 weeks earlier, when Nicholas Castellano first noticed the nanny who would change everything. 3 weeks earlier, the morning was clear and bright, the kind of San Francisco morning that makes you forget why you ever thought about leaving. The Mercer mansion sits on Pacific Heights like a crown, all white stone and enormous windows, surrounded by gardens that cost more to maintain than most people earn in a year. The driveway alone is wider than most apartment buildings are tall. Nicholas Castellano sat in the back of a black Mercedes, watching the security feed on a tablet. He was supposed to be reviewing warehouse inventory. Instead, he was watching a woman push a child on a swing set, and something in the way she moved, something in the careful attention she paid to every moment, caught his attention in a way he did not understand. Her name appeared in the file his investigator had prepared, Sofia Harper, 28 years old, hired 2 months ago as a live-in nanny. No family. No permanent address before the Mercer position. No bank account, no credit history, no digital footprint worth mentioning. She seemed to have materialized out of nothing, like a ghost, quiet and faithful and invisible. But she was not invisible to Emma. And in that moment, watching a young woman with dark eyes and calloused hands push a small child on a swing set, Nicholas Castellano did not yet understand that his life was about to fracture into before and after. He did not understand that the worst betrayals often look exactly like this, like gentleness, like attention, like someone showing up consistently to care for something that matters. He had no idea that in 72 hours, everything he believed about loyalty would change. The afternoon light cuts through the warehouse windows like a blade, catching dust motes that float above stacks of cash. Nicholas Castellano sits at the poker table, his tailored charcoal suit immaculate, cufflinks catching the light, real gold, real weight, real power. His jaw is sharp enough to wound. Dark eyes, storm grey in certain light, scan the room with the precision of a man who has learned that distraction costs blood. Sergio stands behind him, 6'3", shoulders broad as a doorway, his suit black and expensive and made for someone who might need to move fast. Nino paces near the window, younger, hungrier, tattoos creeping up his neck from beneath his collar. The Mercer kid, Sergio says, his voice rough like gravel in a tin can. He owes us 32,000 now. Started with 22 last month. His mother keeps wiring money, but he keeps losing. Nicholas does not look up from his cards. How old is he? 24. Stupid. The kind of stupid that thinks money is infinite because it always has been. The cards snap against the table as Nicholas deals. Snap. 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 Each one deliberate, a small violence. People like that don't understand debt. They don't understand that every dollar they steal from my business is a dollar that could feed someone's family. Every loss here teaches them something they needed to know. He stands, buttons his jacket with one smooth motion. The room shifts. Bring me the security footage from the Mercer mansion. All of it. The last 2 months. Sergio's expression doesn't change, but something tightens at the base of his throat. The mansion, sir. The Mercer boy lives there with his mother. And I want to know everyone in that house and what they're doing at 3 in the morning when normal people are sleeping. An hour later, Nicholas is alone in the observation room, a space that smells like recycled air and the faint ghost of cigarettes that were smoked here before the city banned them. The walls are dark. The monitors glow. He has been watching security feeds for 15 years, and in 15 years he has learned that people reveal themselves in the spaces between their performances. They reveal themselves when they think no one is watching. The footage plays. Catherine Mercer moving through hallways in diamonds and contempt. The Mercer boy stumbling in at 4 in the morning, his shirt torn, his hands bleeding. And then her. The nanny appears on screen at 2:17 in the morning, pushing a child in a wheelchair down the back stairwell. The child is 6 years old, blonde, small enough that she looks almost translucent in the security light. And the nanny, Sofia Harper, according to the file, moves with such care, such absolute attention, that Nicholas finds himself leaning closer to the screen. She is young, 28 according to the paperwork, but her eyes carry the weight of someone much older. Dark hair pulled back so severely it seems to hurt. Clothes that have been washed so many times they are soft at the edges. But her hands are steady on the child's shoulders, and she is speaking, saying something Nicholas cannot hear through the camera silent recording, and the child is listening with the absolute trust that only children possess. What am I looking at? He asks, though he is alone in the room. The footage jumps. 2:56 a.m. Sofia exits through the service entrance, wrapped in a coat that is too thin for the San Francisco winter, carrying a bundle of papers and cloth. She walks into the shadows of the street, and a figure emerges from between 2 parked cars. A man, older, with the careful movements of someone trained in not being noticed. He wears a vest with a logo on the back, Department of Child Services. They speak for 4 minutes. The man gives her an envelope. Sofia tucks it inside her coat. The man places a hand on her shoulder for exactly 3 seconds, a gesture that contains something Nicholas recognizes: protection, conspiracy, care. Then they separate, moving in opposite directions, and Sofia returns to the mansion before the clock reaches 3:15 a.m. Nicholas rewinds. Plays it again. The way she holds the child. The precision of her movements. The way she looks at the figure in the shadows, trusting him completely. In his experience, trust like that means one of three things: family, desperation, or betrayal. And the way she clutches that envelope suggests she is running toward something, not away from it. He presses the intercom. Sergio. Nino. My office. They appear within 90 seconds, the kind of efficiency that comes from knowing the boss's moods the way a sailor knows the ocean. Nicholas does not waste time. The nanny. Sofia Harper. I want everything. Where she came from. Who she sees. Where she goes when she leaves the mansion. I want to know if she has been in contact with anyone from my operations. I want to know if she is selling information. Nino's eyes widen. Sergio just nods, his face the color of concrete. You think she's moving against you? Sergio asks. I think she is doing something at 3 in the morning that Catherine Mercer does not know about. I think she is meeting with people who do not belong in that world. And I think she is hiding something, and in my experience, hidden things have a way of exploding. He turns away from them, back to the monitors. The image of Sofia holding the child freezes on the screen. She is smiling at something the child has said, and the smile transforms her entire face, erases years, makes her look almost innocent. Find out who she is, Nicholas says, and his voice is the sound of a door closing. Find out where she goes. Find out what that envelope contained. And find out why Catherine Mercer's son is gambling at my poker room with money that is clearly not his. They leave without another word. The monitors continue their silent recording. Sofia is in the kitchen now, 5:34 in the morning, making breakfast for the child. Toast. Scrambled eggs. She has set out 3 plates, and Nicholas realizes with something sharp and uncomfortable in his chest that one plate is for the child, one is for herself, and one will sit empty because Catherine Mercer has already left for the day. Sofia cuts the toast into triangles, arranges the eggs with care, and when the child comes to the table, small, blonde, moving like someone still halfway asleep, Sofia pours juice into a plastic cup and sits beside her, not across from her, and eats her own breakfast while the child eats hers. It is domestic. It is tender. It is exactly the kind of moment that makes men like Nicholas Castellano dangerous, because it reminds them of things they thought they had lost. He does not move from the screen for 2 hours. Meanwhile, 3 miles away in the converted closet that Catherine Mercer allows Sofia to call a room, reality is far smaller and far colder. The closet measures 6 feet by 4 feet. A single window the size of a showbox looks out onto the servants' stairwell. Sofia sits on the edge of her bed, a mattress on the floor, covered with a comforter she found at a church donation center, and she counts the money for the 3rd time. $41 in her checking account. The balance sits on her phone screen like a sentence of judgment. She has $37 in cash, hidden in 3 different locations so that if she loses her wallet she still has something. And in the lining of her grandmother's recipe book, sewn into the binding with thread she stole from Catherine Mercer's sewing kit, she has exactly $42 more. $120 total. That is her entire estate. That is what stands between her and the street. The recipe book is falling apart at the spine. Her grandmother's handwriting covers nearly every margin, not just recipes, but notes, amendments, little stories about why certain dishes mattered. On the page for pasta carbonara, written in fading blue ink, "This is what your grandfather made the night he asked me to marry him. I burned it. He married me anyway." On the cinnamon rolls, "Emma loves these best. She always has." On the blanquette de veau, for celebrations. For the moments when you are brave enough to believe your life is going to change. Emma. The child who currently sits on the kitchen floor, building a tower of wooden blocks, is named Emma, and she is 6 years old, and Sofia loves her with a ferocity that terrifies her. The sound of footsteps on the main staircase makes Sofia shove the money back into the book and shove the book under her pillow. Catherine Mercer passes by her door, The closet door is literally a closet door, white and hollow, the kind that does not quite close, without stopping. Her perfume is expensive and sharp, like the blade of a knife made of expensive flowers. Sofia breathes out slowly. Her hands are shaking. She has $78 after buying food for Emma, and the social worker told her she needs at minimum $2,000 to file for emergency guardianship, and Catherine Mercer's son has already threatened to call the police on her if she does not help him with something she does not fully understand yet but suspects involves Emma. The blocks crash as Emma knocks over her tower. She laughs, delighted, and Sofia's chest breaks a little bit, the way it breaks 17 times a day, the way it will continue to break until she figures out how to save this child. She does not know that a man in a black Mercedes is reviewing her image on a monitor screen, convinced she is his enemy. She does not know that her midnight visit to the social worker has just become evidence in Nicholas Castellano's mind that she is dangerous. She does not know that in exactly 6 days, her entire life is going to collapse and rebuild itself into something neither she nor Nicholas Castellano could ever have predicted. All she knows is that Emma is here and she is safe, and that is the only certainty left in the world. The summer rain came without warning, the kind of downpour that transforms San Francisco into a city of steel and water. Sofia Harper held the umbrella above Emma's head, her own dark hair plastered to her face, rain streaming down her neck and soaking through the threadbare coat she had owned for 3 years. The girl, 6 years old with wet curls and pure delight written across her small face, looked up at the woman who had become her entire world. "Sophie," Emma laughed, "we are swimming in the sky." Sofia's chest cracked open the way it did 17 times a day, the way it would continue to crack until she found a way to save this child from the woman who owned the mansion where they both lived like ghosts in separate rooms. 3 blocks away, a black Mercedes pulled up to the curb where Nicholas Castellano sat reviewing documents in the back seat. The rain hammered against the windows. His security chief, Sergio, sat in the front passenger seat, phone pressed to his ear, reporting on a meeting location. Nicholas was not listening. His eyes had caught on something moving through the downpour outside, a small figure, maybe 6 years old, dark curls plastered wet against her head, laughing in the rain with complete abandon. And beside her, a woman in a coat that had seen better years, holding an umbrella over the child while her own body received the full force of the storm. Nicholas's hands gripped the leather seat. Something about the child's face, the angle of her smile, the way she tilted her head back to catch raindrops on her tongue, it struck him like a blade through the chest. 5 years. 5 years he had been searching for his daughter Emma in every corner of this city, hired investigators who turned up nothing, followed every lead that dissolved into ash. His ex-wife had taken her, disappeared into the Nevada desert, and the custody battle had ended with him sitting in a lawyer's office hearing that the child had been legally surrendered. He had stopped looking 2 years ago. It broke something in him to stop, but he had. This child looked exactly like Emma would look now. "Boss?" Sergio turned, registering the sudden tension in Nicholas's shoulders. "Is something wrong?" Nicholas did not answer. He could not answer. The Mercedes pulled away from the curb, but his eyes remained fixed on the umbrella growing smaller in the rain. Sergio turned back to his phone conversation, troubled by the silence. In 15 years of working for Nicholas Castellano, he had learned to recognize the difference between the man's dangerous silences and his deliberate ones. This was neither. This was a man who had just been struck by something he did not understand. That night, Nicholas sat alone in his study on the top floor of the warehouse, screens glowing in the darkness. Security footage played across 3 monitors, weeks of surveillance, grainy images of a woman moving through the Mercer mansion at odd hours, appearing in hallways at 3 in the morning, carrying something that looked like a sleeping child. He had been convinced she was stealing, or passing information to rivals, or running some elaborate con. But as he rewound the footage and froze on a single frame, the back of a child's head, dark curls catching the hallway light, everything shifted. He needed to know who that child was. He needed to know if he was losing his mind or if fate was finally, after 5 years of silence, speaking to him in the language of rain and umbrellas. Meanwhile, across the city in Catherine Mercer's study, a different conversation was unfolding. Catherine sat behind her mahogany desk like a queen in a kingdom built on other people's suffering. The woman had money the way other people had blood. It ran through her, essential and taken for granted. She was dressed in Chanel, her hair blonde and perfect, her smile sharp as broken glass. Across from her sat Douglas Hale, a man who handled problems the way other men handled paperwork. He was older, maybe 55, with the kind of face that had forgotten how to look anything but cruel. "She has become a problem," Catherine said, referring to Sofia. "The nanny. She is far too protective of the girl she keeps locked in the converted closet like some kind of saint. She is asking questions about guardianship. She is getting ideas." Douglas Hale lit a cigarette without asking permission. "How much does she know?" "Enough to become expensive," Catherine replied. "I am arranging a new buyer, someone from Mexico City who specializes in very young girls. But the nanny will run if she suspects anything. She has already tried stealing money from my personal accounts." Hale leaned forward, smoke curling between them like a curse. "I can handle it. I have methods. One disappearance, and your problem solves itself. The girl stays, the nanny vanishes, you get your money, and nobody asks questions." Catherine's hand extended across the desk. They shook on it. The price they agreed on was $5,000, which meant Sofia's time had been cut short without her knowing it. That same night, Sofia sat on her converted closet bed, a mattress on the floor, barely visible in the darkness, and wrote in her grandmother's recipe book. The pages were worn from being read 1,000 times, margins filled with notes in fading handwriting. "Add cinnamon for happiness. Stir 3 times for luck. Never bake angry." Sofia had brought this book with her from the shelter 2 years ago, one of the only possessions she owned that connected her to a woman she had never met, a grandmother who died before she was born, but whose voice lived in these margins. She opened to a blank page and wrote in pencil, her hand shaking slightly. "To the man I saw once in the hallway. The one with eyes like a storm that cannot break. I know you are not good. I know you are dangerous. But when you looked at that painting on the wall, for just 1 second, you looked like someone who remembered how to be gentle. I am writing this because I may not be here to tell you myself. If you find Emma, and you are truly her father, please love her the way she deserves. Please be gentle with her. Please be the person you looked like for 1 second." Sofia did not sign it. She could not sign it. She folded the pages and placed them in an envelope, addressed it with no name, and placed it under her pillow next to the $78 that represented every hope she had left. 3 days later, the parking garage behind the medical clinic was nearly empty. Sofia had taken a second shift cleaning the building, desperate to earn another $50 before she had to run. The smell of antiseptic and floor wax clung to her clothes. She was walking to her car when the headlights appeared behind her, pinning her against the concrete wall. Douglas Hale stepped out of the sedan like a man who had rehearsed this moment. His hands found her throat, and Sofia understood in that instant that her time had run out. He slammed her against the wall with enough force to crack the breath from her body. Her vision exploded into white lights. "Where is she?" His voice was a growl, animal and hungry. "Where are you taking the girl?" Sofia's hands came up instinctively, scratching his face, drawing blood that looked black in the parking garage light. She fought like an animal because she was no longer a woman in that moment. She was a mother defending her child, and mothers who have nothing left to lose are the most dangerous creatures alive. He hit her. Once in the temple, once across her eye socket. Pain bloomed like flowers made of fire. She fell to the concrete. Rain began to fall through the open levels of the garage, cold and merciful on her burning face. Hale leaned down, his breathing heavy, his face inches from hers. "Catherine sold you out, little girl. You were nobody to her. Less than nothing. I have a buyer waiting for young girls, the kind that fetch $50,000 in certain markets. You are going to help me collect her, or I will kill you here and take her myself. Either way, I am leaving with that child in 1 hour." He stood, straightened his jacket, and walked back to his car. The engine started. He pulled away. Sofia lay on the cold concrete with rain falling on her face and understood that she had 2 choices, run and leave Emma behind, or run to the one person powerful enough to stop Douglas Hale. She thought of the man with eyes like a storm. She thought of Emma calling for her in the dark. She thought of the recipe book hidden under her pillow, the goodbye letter folded inside. She pulled herself up. Every bone screamed. Her left eye was swelling shut, and she could taste blood mixing with rain on her tongue. She moved toward the warehouse district, toward the place where Catherine's son played poker with men in black suits, where Nicholas Castellano sat surrounded by his empire and his loneliness. The rain followed her like a witness. The underground poker room fell silent when Sofia crashed through the metal door. Blood ran down her left temple in a thin line that looked almost decorative until you understood what it meant. Her eye was swollen purple, and her throat bore the perfect finger marks of a man's hands trying to end her life. The men stared. Cigarette smoke hung in the air like a living thing. Cards remained frozen in hands. Sofia's vision was blurred, but she could see him, Nicholas Castellano, sitting at the center table with chips worth more money than she would make in 10 lifetimes scattered before him. His eyes widened, not with shock at her appearance, but with recognition. He rose from his chair in one fluid motion. "Emma," Sofia gasped, her voice shattered. "Your daughter Emma. I have been protecting her for 8 months. Catherine Mercer bought her from your ex-wife. $22,000. She was going to traffic her. Douglas Hale knows. He is coming." The room went white with silence. Sergio and Nino stared at their boss, who had gone absolutely still, hands clenched so tightly his knuckles had turned white. "Where?" Nicholas's voice came out like gravel. "Where is she?" "The mansion." "My closet." "She thinks her name is Emma Mercer, but she knows you are her father. I showed her your picture from the newspaper. She has been asking for you every day." Nicholas moved across the room in 3 strides and caught Sofia as her legs gave out. His hands that had ended lives, held her with unexpected gentleness. "Nino. Take 12 men. The Mercer mansion. Get my daughter out now. Sergio, find Douglas Hale. Bring him breathing." They moved like a machine wound tight with purpose. Nicholas carried Sofia to the back office, laid her carefully on the leather couch that probably cost more than her entire life, and pressed a clean cloth to her bleeding temple. His touch was gentle in a way that made her realize she had never been touched gently by a man before. "Tell me everything," he said. His voice was raw. "Tell me how you found her. Tell me how you kept her alive." Sofia told him. She told him about the locked basement, about the phone conversation where Catherine negotiated a price, about breaking the lock at midnight and moving a terrified 6-year-old into a closet that was barely large enough for a mattress. She told him about the recipe book, about the stories she invented, about the $78 she had saved for guardianship papers that would never be filed. She told him about feeding Emma from her own meals, about teaching her to read from food labels and newspaper articles, about the love that had grown between them like a plant reaching for sunlight through the smallest crack. Nicholas listened, his jaw working, veins bulging in his neck and temples as he registered what this woman, this invisible woman, had sacrificed. "Why did you not come to me?" he asked quietly. Sofia looked away. "I am nobody. A woman who sleeps in a closet, works 2 shifts, has $78 to her name. Why would the most powerful man in San Francisco believe someone like me? Why would you risk anything for someone invisible?" Nicholas's hand moved to her throat, where the bruises were already darkening into the shape of violence. His fingers traced them carefully, reverently, as if he was reading a map of her suffering. "You protected my daughter when no one else would," he said. His voice cracked like ice breaking on a frozen river. "You are not nobody. You are the only person in this city brave enough to be a mother to her. You are never nobody again." His men watched through the office window, disturbed and transfixed. In 15 years, they had never seen Nicholas Castellano touch anyone with this kind of tenderness. In 15 years, they had never seen him cry. The phone on his desk rang. Nino's voice came through, barely controlled. "Boss, we have her." She is safe. She is asking for Sophie. Over and over, she is asking for Sophie. She is holding a recipe book. Says you gave it to her. Nicholas closed his eyes. Tears ran down his face in the quiet office. Sophia reached for his hand. She is going to be okay, Sophia whispered. You found her. That is all that matters now. But what neither of them knew was that Douglas Hale had already sent a message to the Volkov family, Nicholas's rivals in the Russian underworld, informing them that the most powerful man in San Francisco had just revealed his greatest weakness, a 6-year-old girl and a woman who loved her. What neither of them knew was that in exactly 72 hours, their entire world would catch fire. The rain fell like a blade wrapping around the warehouse parking lot, each drop hitting the concrete with a sound like coins dropping into an empty tin. Inside the poker room, Nicholas Castellano stood motionless, the letter trembling in his hands under the fluorescent light that cast everything in shades of grey and sorrow. Sophia's words stared back at him. 97 words confessing a love she believed she had no right to feel. 97 words written with the certainty that she would disappear before dawn, taking Emma's laughter with her, leaving Nicholas with his daughter but not the woman who had saved her. He read the final line again, I loved you from a distance because that is where broken people belong. Behind him, through the office window, Emma slept curled against a leather chair, her small hand clutching the worn recipe book he had given her weeks ago. His daughter. His Emma. The child he had spent 5 years searching for in every dark corner of San Francisco, never imagining she was sleeping in a converted closet at Catherine Mercer's mansion while a woman with calloused hands and bruises shaped like violence stood between her and the cruelty of the world. The phone had rung at 11:24 p.m. Nino's voice came through like gravel, We have her. We have her, boss. She is safe. She is asking for Sophie. Over and over, just Sophie. And that was when Nicholas understood that his empire, built across 23 years of blood and loyalty and deals made in whispered rooms, meant nothing. All of it meant nothing without the right person to share it with. He turned and walked into the rain. She was at the edge of the parking lot, moving toward the street like a ghost already half dissolved. The $78 in her pocket and a letter she planned to leave behind. She had nothing else. No family. No home that was truly hers. Just the space she occupied in Emma's heart and a love she had written down because she could no longer keep it buried in her chest. Sophia. His voice carried across the wet concrete, deep and solid like a door being sealed shut. She stopped. Every muscle in her body went rigid. She did not turn around. Nicholas closed the distance between them in 8 deliberate steps. His Italian leather shoes, worth more than a month of her old rent, splashed through puddles. His cashmere coat, dark as a storm, dripped water onto the pavement. When he reached her, he did not speak. He simply took the letter from her shaking hands and opened it, reading her words under the parking lot lights while rain streamed down his face like a man weeping. You were going to leave, he said. Not a question. Sophia's voice emerged broken, fractured like glass. I am just the nanny. You have Emma now. You do not need someone like me. Someone broken. Someone who cannot give you. He kissed her. His hands cupped her bruised face with the kind of tenderness that made his men, watching through the warehouse window, shift uncomfortably in their suits. In 15 years of working for Nicholas Castellano, not one of them had ever seen him touch another human being this way. Not once. I need you, he said against her mouth. Emma needs you. You are not the nanny anymore, Sophia. You are never just anything again. Stay. But inside the warehouse, Sergio's phone buzzed. A message from the FBI tip line came through with information that would change everything. Catherine Mercer had already made her move. She had called the Volkov family, Russian soldiers with dead eyes and older loyalties, and offered them a simple arrangement, help her recover her stepdaughter from the man holding her, and in exchange, she would deliver information that would cripple Nicholas Castellano's entire operation. Financial records. Names. The location of his offshore accounts. The Volkovs had said yes. They were already crossing the Bay Bridge in a convoy of black SUVs, for soldiers in the back seat of each vehicle, weapons secured and ready. Catherine Mercer sat in the passenger seat of the lead car, her silk robe wrapped around expensive negligee, her hair pulled back in a style that cost $200 to maintain. She had not slept. She had not eaten the breakfast her housekeeping staff prepared. She had only sat in her study and calculated how to survive this, how to blame Sofia, how to disappear into her network of connections that reached as far as City Hall and the private clubs where decisions were made behind closed doors. She would claim Sofia was unstable. She would produce records showing the nanny had stolen jewelry. She would say Emma had been kidnapped, and that she, Catherine Mercer, was the victim trying to retrieve her stepdaughter from a dangerous criminal. The courts favored women with her resources. The system had always bent toward her. But what she did not know was that Sergio had already called every contact in the FBI's organized crime division. That recordings of her phone calls to Douglas Hale were already uploaded to 3 separate federal servers. That her financial records, the $22,000 she had received 5 years ago for acquisition, the payments to Hale's trafficking network, the transfers to offshore accounts in her son's name, had been photographed and sent to every news outlet in Northern California. What Catherine Mercer did not know was that her entire life was already crumbling while she sat in the back seat of a black SUV, driving toward a warehouse where a man with eyes like winter was waiting for her. At 12:34 a.m., the Volkov convoy pulled through the warehouse gates. At 12:35 a.m., Catherine Mercer stepped into the poker room wearing her robe and her certainty that money and lineage could purchase survival. At 12:36 a.m., she saw Nicholas sitting in the chair where he always sat, but he was not alone. Sofia stood beside him, her hand in his, her bruised face turned toward a television screen where security footage played on silent. Catherine's own face appeared, tiny and perfect on the screen, speaking to Douglas Hale on a recorded call. Once the child is of age, we can move her into the Costa Rica operation. She is striking enough to bring premium clients. We need the capital injection. Catherine's breath stopped in her chest. That is $22,000 you received 5 years ago, Nicholas said. His voice was not angry. Anger would have been merciful. His voice was flat, final, like a judge reading a sentence. Payment for my daughter. Payment for every child you moved through your network. Payment for knowing what Douglas Hale does with the people he collects. I did not know what he. You knew, Sofia said. Her voice trembled but held. You knew the night you paid him. You knew the morning you bought a new necklace with that money. You knew every day you looked at Emma and decided she was worth selling. Catherine's face drained of color. Her mouth opened and closed. Behind her, the 4 Volkov soldiers suddenly realized they had been played. The Bratva did not work for men who betrayed them. The Bratva did not take sides with women who trafficked children. They turned and walked back toward their vehicles without a word, leaving Catherine standing alone in the poker room. Nino, Nicholas said quietly. The door opened. Federal agents in dark windbreakers entered, moving with the precision of a choreographed dance. They had been waiting in an adjacent building for exactly this moment. They had recorded every word Catherine spoke in this room. They had photographed every file Sergio had arranged on the desk. Catherine Mercer, you are under arrest for human trafficking, conspiracy to commit trafficking, money laundering, and attempted extortion, the lead agent said. The handcuffs clicked onto her wrists with a sound like a door locking forever. She screamed. She called for her lawyer. She promised money, connections, favors. But as they walked her toward the federal vehicles waiting outside, she realized the truth. Her network, the thing she had spent 30 years building, had already been dismantled. Every connection, every corrupt official, every judge she thought she owned, all of them were about to receive visits from federal agents carrying the same evidence. The news cameras arrived at dawn. Catherine Mercer was dragged from her mansion on live television, her silk robe torn, her perfect hair falling around her shoulders, her face streaked with makeup and the realization that money could not save her this time. Every socialite who had ever envied her, every woman at the country club who had whispered jealously about her charity galas and her vacation homes, watched her empire collapse in real time. 40 years in federal prison. No parole. Total financial ruin. Her name would become synonymous with evil in every society column from San Francisco to New York. And somewhere in that storm of justice, a 6-year-old girl woke up in a clean bed with sunlight streaming through the windows, and the first word she spoke was, "Sophie." Nicholas carried her into the kitchen where Sofia stood with flour on her cheek, making pancakes from the recipe book. The margins were filled with notes in his mother's handwriting: "Never rush the butter. Never rush love." Emma wrapped her arms around Sofia's neck and held on like she would never let go. And Nicholas Castellano, the man who had built an empire from violence and silence, watched the woman he loved hold his daughter, and understood that sometimes one hand reached out at the right moment can change an entire life. The penthouse overlooks San Francisco Bay, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Golden Gate Bridge in the distance. Morning light floods across marble countertops, and Sofia Harper stands barefoot in the kitchen wearing an oversized grey shirt that belongs to Nicholas Castellano, flour dusting her cheekbones as she measures ingredients into a ceramic bowl. Her hands move with the careful precision of someone who has counted every penny, every grain, every moment of scarcity for so long that abundance still feels like a dream that could shatter. Behind her, on the kitchen island, sits her grandmother's recipe book. The leather cover is worn soft from decades of handling, and the margins overflow with handwritten notes in faded blue ink: "Never rush the butter. Never rush love." Sofia touches the page without reading it. She has memorized every word. The sound of small feet pattering across hardwood arrives before Emma does. 6 years old, with copper curls and her father's dark eyes, the child careens around the counter corner and wraps her arms around Sofia's waist. "Can I crack the eggs?" Emma's voice carries the particular music of a child who has learned to ask before taking anything, even from the woman she calls Sophie. "You may crack one egg," Sofia says, and hands her the smallest one from the carton. "But gently. Eggs are fragile, like me," Emma finishes. She has heard this metaphor before. Sofia nods and kisses the top of her head. They crack the egg together. The shell breaks cleanly, and Emma laughs, a sound that still surprises Nicholas Castellano every single time he hears it. He stands in the kitchen doorway with black coffee in a crystal glass, his expensive suit already buttoned despite the early hour, watching the two people who have rewired his entire understanding of what it means to be alive. For 15 years, his mornings looked the same. He would wake in this penthouse, shower, dress in clothes that cost more than most people's monthly rent, and walk to his office to orchestrate deals that moved millions. The silence would be absolute. The coffee would be perfect. Nothing would feel like anything. Now there is flour on the counter and Emma's laugh echoing off the high ceilings and Sofia humming something that sounds like a lullaby while she scrambles eggs in a worn cast-iron pan that arrived in a cardboard box labeled "Things That Matter." The doorbell chimes at 8:30. Sergio arrives carrying a toy horse wrapped in expensive paper and a knowing smile. His tailored black suit fits perfectly across his broad shoulders, but his eyes betray something softer than usual, respect mixed with reverence. He hands the toy to Emma, and she accepts it as if he has given her something precious. "For you, Piccolo," Sergio says, and Sofia watches as he bows slightly. In the underworld, she understands now, this is how you show respect to someone who saved the boss's daughter. It does not matter that she was homeless. It does not matter that she owned nothing. She held what Nicholas Castellano would have given an empire to protect. Nino arrives with fresh pastries and a question in his eyes. He looks at Sofia as if checking to confirm that she is still real, still here, still standing in the kitchen like she belongs. They sit at the dining table, the four of them plus Sofia and Nicholas, and no one remarks on how unusual this is. A year ago, Nicholas never sat at tables. He gave orders from behind mahogany desks, from the backs of black SUVs, from warehouse floors where the floor was concrete and the air tasted like fear. Now he sits beside Sofia and watches Emma tell a rambling story about school while butter melts into warm bread. After breakfast, after Sergio and Nino have left with quiet goodbyes, after Emma has climbed into Sofia's lap to listen to a chapter from a book about a girl who finds a magical garden, Nicholas pulls Sofia into the study. The walls are lined with leather-bound volumes that he has never read. The desk holds papers worth millions of dollars. He hands her a single document. The paper feels expensive, cream-colored, official, bearing the seal of the University of California San Francisco School of Nursing. "What is this?" Sofia's voice trembles like a candle in the wind. "Enrollment," he says. "Full scholarship. All costs covered. Classes begin in 2 weeks." Sofia reads the words twice, then a third time, as if repetition will make them true. "Nicholas, I cannot." "You can," he interrupts, and his voice sounds like venom mixed with honey. "Do you remember what you told me? That night in the rain when Douglas Hale had his hands on your throat and you still fought to protect Emma." She remembers. Every second of that night is seared into her nervous system. "You told me you wanted to be a nurse," he continues. "Before Catherine Mercer took everything. Before the world convinced you that you were nobody. You spent 6 years pouring everything into a child who was not yours when you were barely surviving yourself. Let me give you this. Not as charity. As acknowledgement that you are the bravest person I have ever encountered." Sofia cannot speak. The words are trapped behind her sternum, behind her ribs, behind every wall she built to survive. She holds the enrollment letter and cries in a way she has not cried since before Emma was born, not tears of despair, but tears that taste like relief, like the sky opening. Nicholas takes her hand. His fingers are calloused from a different kind of labor than hers, the labor of building empires instead of breaking to survive them. But his grip is gentle, and he pulls her close, and she lets herself be held. The summer thunderstorms have passed. Through the study windows, San Francisco spreads out beneath them in the clear afternoon light. The water of the bay reflects the sky like a mirror being held up to heaven. 1 year later, Sofia walks across the UCSF campus with her textbooks pressed against her chest and her nursing student identification clipped to her pocket. The uniform she wears is clean white, pressed carefully the night before. Her name is embroidered in small black letters above her heart, S. Harper, RN student. She stops at a coffee cart on campus and orders Emma's favorite hot chocolate, vanilla with a splash of caramel. The vendor asks for $6. Sofia pulls out her wallet, and the physical motion triggers the memory, $78. That was everything she had. That was the sum total of her existence reduced to a number in a bank account. She was one emergency away from nothing, from the streets, from the basement where Emma was kept, from a life that ended with her disappearing like smoke. Now she has $6 for a child's favorite drink, and she does not count every penny. The relief of not counting is its own kind of grace. The evening settles as she climbs the stairs to the penthouse. Emma is at the kitchen table surrounded by homework, second-grade mathematics, subtraction problems arranged in neat rows. Sofia sets the hot chocolate beside her, and Emma reaches up to wrap her arms around Sofia's neck. "Look," Emma says, pointing to the page. "I got them all right." "You are brilliant," Sofia tells her, and means it completely. The elevator doors open, and Nicholas arrives home. He wears his business suit still, custom-tailored, worth more than Sofia once earned in a month, but his tie is loosened, and the moment he sees them, his face changes. His shoulders soften. His jaw unclenches. For a man who built his life on control and ruthlessness, he becomes unguarded in the presence of these two people. Emma runs to him calling Daddy, and the word hits him like it does every single time, fresh, improbable, miraculous. He lifts her, and she wraps her legs around his waist like a monkey, and he kisses the top of her head while his eyes find Sofia. She is wearing scrubs still, having come straight from her shift at the hospital, not the hospital where she worked as a live-in nanny years ago, but St. Mary's Medical Center, where she is studying to become what she always wanted to be. She is exhausted. There are dark shadows under her eyes from 12-hour shifts combined with evening classes. Her hair is pulled back messily, and there is a stain on her sleeve that might be coffee or might be something worse. Nicholas has never seen anyone more beautiful. He crosses the kitchen and kisses her too, not with the controlled passion of someone who is certain, but with the desperate tenderness of someone who still cannot quite believe she is here. Sofia reaches up to touch his jaw, and her hands smell like antiseptic and possibility. They move through the evening in the rhythm that has become familiar, homework finished, dinner prepared using recipes from the grandmother's book, Emma chattering about a boy in her class named Marcus who tried to trade his apple for her cookie and she said absolutely not because apples were useless and cookies were gold. Nicholas and Sofia exchange a look across the table, the kind of communication that develops between people who have survived something together. They are amused. They are grateful. They are a family assembled from broken pieces, and somehow the cracks have filled with light instead of darkness. Sofia opens her grandmother's recipe book to select dinner for the next evening. As she turns the pages, something slides out from between the binding and the cover. A letter. Bloodstained from that night in the warehouse when Catherine Mercer's men cornered her and everything collapsed and reformed. The goodbye letter she tried to give him. The confession of her impossible feelings for him. The letter written with the certainty that she would disappear before dawn to keep both him and Emma safe from Hale's network. She turns to Nicholas. He shrugs with the sheepish expression of a man caught in a gentle crime. I kept it, he says. Reminder of the night I almost lost you both because I was too stupid to see what was right in front of me. You were never invisible, Sofia. Not even for a moment. I just needed the rain to fall hard enough to wash the scales from my eyes. Emma asks why everyone is quiet. Sofia tells her they are just remembering, and Emma nods as if she understands the sacred quality of memory. The three of them sit at the table as the city lights come alive beyond the windows. The Golden Gate Bridge glows like a sculpture of hope suspended between the earth and the stars. Emma chatters about school while Nicholas holds Sofia's hand beneath the table, and Sofia understands something that took her 30 years to fully comprehend. The world had convinced her that kindness made you weak in a cruel system. It had taught her that protecting one child who was not biologically hers would not matter. It had shown her through every harsh gesture that a man born into power and violence could never see the worth in a woman who owned nothing but her courage and her love. She was wrong about all of it. Sometimes a hand reached out at the right moment, not a moment planned or orchestrated, but a moment that arrived when both people were broken and desperate and willing to see each other clearly, can change an entire life. Can transform a man from a weapon into a father. Can turn a homeless woman into a woman with a future. Can build a family from rubble and rain and the fierce decision to love anyway. If this story moved your heart, hit that subscribe button. Share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances, because every single day, people are discovering that they deserve them. Drop a comment below and tell me which moment hit you hardest. Was it when she stood in that warehouse and refused to disappear? Was it when Nicholas realized what he was about to lose? Was it Emma calling him daddy for the first time? Every comment you leave is a precious source of motivation that helps us continue creating stories that remind you why love and courage still matter in this world. We wish all of you watching this video good health, a joyful life, and days filled with peace and happiness. No matter how hard life gets, remember that after the rain, the sky clears. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. We will see you again in the next video. Goodbye.